remembering, recollecting the here and now, the way it is, then you're looking inward, you're not seeking to describe external things, but just observing, being the knowing itself, knowing that the breath is like this, the body, the posture, state of mind. So being aware, say, of just emotional or mental quality you're experiencing at this moment, whether you feel sleepy, tired, bright, rested, happy, sad, confused, fed up, or whatever. It's your position to whatever mood you're in is knowing it. It's the way it is. So this brings us to Buddho, Buddha, knowing Dhamma. So these two words, Buddha and Dhamma, remember that they're connected. It's not me, Ajahn Sumedho, knowing Dhamma anymore. It's not my views about Dhamma, but it's this direct knowing, awareness, consciousness, with wisdom, knowing the way it is. And so then this, in the Vipassana practice, it's all anicca dukkha, not all conditions are impermanent. Sape sankhara anicca. So sankhara is translated as conditions. So these are form things, conditions, whether they're refined or coarse, through the senses, the senses, the eyes themselves are conditions. The ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, thoughts, feelings, everything is sankhara, in other words. All conditions are impermanent. So then we reflect on, we're not trying to just convince ourselves that this is a truth, or it's not a doctrinal position. It's a reflection on the way it is. So then we change from just trying to control and get something or get rid of something to being the observer of change. Since change is the common characteristic to all conditioned phenomena, sape sankhara anicca, all, sape means all, sankharas, all conditions are anicca, impermanent. You see the difference, it's like grasping the words themselves. The Buddha said all conditions are impermanent, so that's what I believe. That's a belief system. But it's not meant to be like that. It's not a doctrine, but it's a reflection. So then we observe, we put ourselves in the position of being the observer of impermanence, not someone who believes that all conditions are impermanent. So this is sati sampajanya, mindfulness. So this is also Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi, Dhammāṃ saranam gacchāmi, Sanghang saranam gacchāmi, taking refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha in a very practical way. It's no longer ceremonial or a chant, but it's a very, it's a paradigm to use to 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 change from seeing everything in highly personal terms about you as a person, your ability to meditate, inability, who you think you are, views you have about Buddhism, practice, and so forth, is no longer what you're operating from. You're not coming from the self view anymore, but from the Buddho, the awakened consciousness, the alert, attentive, reflecting on the way it is, on Dhamma. All conditions are impermanent. Now then there's this knowing of impermanence, like sati or mindfulness. It's a natural, we'd all be dead by now if we were never mindful. I mean, it comes with, if we have to use it in order to survive, so that it's not something that we never use or never have, but we don't notice it. We don't even, it's not considered anything of, that is important in our culture. So culturally, we're not, even though we are mindful when we cross the street, you have to pay attention, don't you, to the traffic when you're driving a car. It demands mindfulness because you can easily crash the car or hit somebody. When you're climbing mountains, rock climbers, your life is in danger. You are mindful. It's protective also. If you ever had your life in danger, where you're physically in danger or something, then it's amazing how mindful one is automatically. It goes on automatic pilot. You don't have time to worry about what somebody else is thinking back home, or how you're going to pay for the electric bill. You're just dealing with the immediacy of, say, a life-threatening event. But in society now, society like this one here, we don't. Mindfulness isn't. We don't. We can live in this kind of sense of security. We can. And that's why we become neurotic, because we're not on the edge of life surviving. We're just taking a lot for granted, and then endlessly worrying or making problems up, or just caught up in vanity or jealousy or self-obsession, self-consciousness. Because we can live in a society like this that takes care of us. You don't have to make that much effort to survive. Where in, say, a previous time, they took a lot of effort to survive, to hunt, to get food, to protect oneself from wild animals. There was this self-preservation necessity, where modern life is, we have laws and agreements, moral agreements, etc. So this situation here, say a retreat that we're engaging in now, is, we have the moral precepts, so we're not here to defend ourselves against it being attacked by others, or being our things being stolen or being exploited, taken advantage of. It's not about self-preservation anymore, because we have a high sense of moral integrity that we've all agreed to in the first evening, taking the 8 precepts. So that's to be reflected on. When we all agree to the same kind of restraint, and moral restraint, or renunciate practices, then there's a kind of trust and confidence. We're not, here to engage each other to charm and seduce or take advantage of each other in any way. So that problem is gone. So then the duty is to, the encouragement is to awaken and observe, because the situation is constructed, is arranged to make this as possible and as safe and as conducive as we can make it in this under these circumstances. So then we do the chanting, the reflection on Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, the Lord, the perfectly enlightened one. What is that? Now ask yourself, is that some kind of belief system that there's a Buddha out there in the universe who's blessed and perfectly enlightened? That's one way. That's projecting thoughts out into the universe, isn't it? Or is it just a perfunctory custom that we do? Or ask yourself at this very moment, what is the Lord? Meaning the leader, isn't it? The Lord, in the English word Lord means the leader, the boss, that which is worthy of respect and blessed, pure. What is that? What is the leader? What is the Lord at this moment? In the reality of this moment, here and now, Paccuppanna Dhamma. And then if your personality will say, well, certainly I don't know what he's talking about, or, maybe Ajahn Sumedho's the Lord, or whatever. But then you're projecting, and that you're seeing it as external to you. What is the leader, the Lord, the Blessed One, the pure, in you at this very moment? So this is like inquiring, self-inquiry. So these things, you're internalizing these concepts. It's no longer just chanting Pali words or performing ceremonies, but you're what we call internalizing this. Is the Lord separate from consciousness, or as you, within the limitation you find yourself at this moment? So then, all conditions are impermanent, so the self, the ego, isn't it? The sense of me and mine, all this changes, but that which is aware, this awareness again, this mindfulness, Bhutto, that's the refuge, so that's the Lord, that's the Blessed One, that's the Pure One. And so you're beginning to recognize it, or questioning rather than seeing it as just something external, or because you're so convinced you are of the personality that you have, and you go, I'm certainly not the Lord. Or maybe you say, my mindfulness is not very good, not very mindful. But that's all Sakkaya Ditthi, isn't it? That's the personality view, but awareness of that. You see, so this is pointing directly in this Bhutto Dhammo relationship. It's not, doesn't make sense on a personal level. It doesn't go around saying I'm the Buddha, or that is a form of madness. It's not, or Buddha is in me. This is getting outside the language or the conceptual realm, the conditioned realm, to recognizing pure the purity of awareness, consciousness, awareness, wisdom. This is what purity is. It can never be stained. You can forget. That's what we do. We forget it, and we get carried away with our personalities, with the conditions, with the changing conditions. So we live in a world of fear, anxiety, worry, restlessness, greed, hatred, and delusion, and then we suffer because we're lost into this changing, inexorable changingness of samsara, which you can never find security, safety, or peace in it. It's not possible, or purity. There's nothing pure in sankharas. Their nature is change. But purity then isn't about me as a person being pure, but the true nature of things. When I take refuge in Buddha, then that can, and really internalize that refuge, this awareness, of impurity. So if I have impure thoughts going through my mind, awareness of impurity, that awareness is pure. Where awareness is not made impure by the thoughts that go through your mind. So by investigating this way and by reflecting in this way, you can begin to have a sense of trust in the conscious reality of your existence. You're not just a helpless victim of circumstances, or just a bundle of neurotic fears and desires that you might identify with if you didn't reflect in this way. If you're just operating from ignorance and habit, then we don't feel it. My personality, after 43 years of monastic life, is not enlightened. Personalities never get enlightened. So they just, because they're conditions and they change. So Sakkaya Ditthi is called a fetter, Pali Sanyojana. There's 10 fetters. And the first 3 fetters are all the ego, sense of self, cultural conditioning, and the thinking process. Attachment to these. So therefore, with mindfulness, you're getting outside the conditioning process. You're no longer just operating from cultural views, biases, prejudices, assumptions. So this is recognizable, like this awareness. Like this. It's like just attentiveness, listening, and as you recognize it more and more, usually in the beginning we just have kind of flashes or momentary mindfulness. But then as you recognize it and you keep reminding yourself, it connects, connectedness. It has a continuity that's not created out of concentrating on it by trying to shut the world out or control the mind, but through awakening to the real. So the sense of listening, mindfulness, like I use this listening practice, listening externally to sounds external, or listening inwardly to the sakkayaditthi, the emotions I'm feeling, love and hate, like and dislike, fear, self-consciousness, indignation, righteous indignation, conceits, resentments, the whole lot, listening to them. So listening then is, we have, we listen to external sounds, but you can also listen internally. So the melodrama of one's life, the soap opera, when listened to, and that's not, even calling it melodrama or soap opera is disparaging it a bit, isn't it? The kind of over-the-top reactions to life or exaggerations, but this listening is not judging, it's not saying, it's not disparaging anything, it's just listening. So whether the soap opera is interesting or boring or foolish or intelligent or whatever, it's no longer, we're no longer encouraged to judge it, but to recognize it, this sense of me, what I like, don't like, what I want, what I resent, what I think is the melodrama that one listens to, this listening, mindfulness, in order to see it as an object in the mind. The thinking process, the emotional reaction you have in the present. This is awareness of the impermanence of these conditions, discerning it. Now, to concentrate the mind on an object is like the samatha meditation is where you concentrate your attention on one object. So let's say on the breath. So you use anapanasati as a samatha practice. So you put your attention on where you feel the breath entering your nostrils. And then you shut out every other, everything else, to just focus, concentrate, put your full attention on the breathing, inhaling, exhaling. Now that is concentration practice. So that takes, if developed, it's a good thing to develop, and it leads to tranquility. But what I'm pointing out is that by choosing an object, a point to concentrate on, and then we have to shut everything else off. So you don't want any distraction. So we usually seek a quiet place to practice, so that there's no lot of distraction or noise or irritating things, so we can devote ourselves to concentrating and refining conscious experience. Then the Vipassana mode is the right concentration. Then in terms of Vipassana is not fixed on a point. In other words, it's the here and now. So there's contemplate, focusing on one point or here and now, which is, I call it the point that the samatha is the point that excludes everything but the object, but the point itself. So it's a tiny point, and then you exclude everything else. And samma, right concentration, is where everything is included. So the point, it can be a little dot, or it can be one, the total of this moment. So this is where the listening is an inclusive practice. It's not listening for something and concentrating on it, but we have to open ourselves in this broad way to everything here and now that's happening, both internally and externally. Now, there's a lot of opinions about samatha vipassana, and in the Theravada and Buddhist circles, about should you do. You can't do vipassana unless you do samatha first, or then there's a teacher in Thailand, a Thai monk used to he detested samatha. Say it like it was a foul word, samatha. He's doing samatha. And then he called his vipassana luan luan, pure, absolute, unadulterated vipassana. And then the other extreme is you've got to get the jhanas and the concentration through samatha in order to do vipassana. And you get these from scriptures, interpretation of scriptures. But what is that now, whatever opinion you have? Vipassana, pure vipassana with none of that samatha, or you've got to get samatha first in order to do vipassana. That's the thinking, isn't it? And you acquired that view maybe from a teacher or from the way you interpret scriptural authority. Not that it's wrong, but this is where this awareness of even how, the kind of attachments we have to what other teachers tell us, or views about practice, about samatha vipassana or whatever. They are not that I'm saying, not judging these views as right or wrong, but they are what they are. And this is where you begin to take responsibility for things rather than just expecting somebody to always tell you what to do, and get confused about, Ajahn Sumedho says this and another teacher says that, and then you go to Thailand and practice, and then you go to Suan Mok, and then you find a Vipassana teacher in the States, and on and on like that, and you get, who's right and who's wrong. And so this is this refuge in Buddha and Dhamma then allows you to observe confusion about teaching. What should I do first? Samatha first and then Vipassana? What is that right now? It's a thought, isn't it? It is what it is. No, on the conventional level, then we do have preferences for different conventions and different styles or traditions and so forth. So this is, that's the nature of the conditioned realm. It attracts or repels, or we like it or we don't like it. It brings up emotions like liking or disliking, believing or disbelieving, or being confused. But then the direct way of Buddha knowing Dhamma is being aware of this. You don't have to make the decision. It's not up to me to tell you that you should do Vipassana and not Samatha, or vice versa. Or that you don't have to feel. Trust yourself to just be the awareness. And then we can use, samatha practices. And we can also develop vipassana. One doesn't kind of obstruct the other. It's just the obstruction lies in our ignorance and our attachment to views. So in this way, then you're developing a sense, a confidence that comes through wisdom, not in you as a personality who's practicing in the right way, but because you're coming outside of that personal agenda and the conditioned realm to begin to recognize and trust in awareness itself. Consciousness with awareness with wisdom. You recognize it. You can't qualify it, but you can recognize it. It's this. Now, in reflecting in this way, in the Dhamma teachings, there's the four elements: earth, fire, water, and air. This is the conditioned realm. So these are the four elements. Whether it's mental, physical, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, thought, can all be kind of connected to these four elements: fire, air, the solid element, the liquid element. And then there's two elements: consciousness, space, and consciousness. Now, the four elements are conditions that have boundaries, so that you can picture them, you can photograph them, you can fantasize, create all kinds of forms. But space has no boundary, does it? So now, like, open your eyes now and just look at space. Is just eye consciousness of space. And as I was saying the other day, space is the important factor in this room, isn't it? Because we can all be in this space. And the space, we can say the space is in the room, or is, inevitably we say, no, the room is in space. Where does space end? Just visually, you can't see the end of it. It just, you look at the sky and does it end up there? But then you can't see that far. So this is just recognizing these two elements, space and consciousness. Consciousness also has no boundary. And this is, it's an immeasurable. We tend to connect consciousness with our brain, with our thinking process and that, but in Buddha-dhamma, it's not that. It's immeasurable. Consciousness has no boundary. So then you're beginning to just observe the way things are. Like consciousness, you create yourself through memory, through perception. The creation of yourself is a identity with the body, with the conditions, emotions, and then consciousness. You experience consciousness through those distortions of self. It's like looking through something that's distorting the view. So everything isn't really, it's all strange and deformed and filtered through various conventional forms. And that's how we experience life, and then the suffering results from that. Because we're not in touch with reality, we're living through distortions of reality, through ignorance. And that's why dukkha is the first noble truth. So then pure space and then consciousness, being mindful, then allows us to receive the conditions without attaching to them. Like this point that includes everything. We're not this samma ditthi, samma sangapo, the right effort, right concentration is not about shutting everything out, but it's about opening to the totality, to oneness, wholeness, completeness. And that we can only do not through focusing on one point at exclusion of others, but including everything. So this is the attitude of Vipassana, where you're being the knowing of change. All conditions are impermanent. So this is very direct, you can't get more direct than this. But because it is direct, it's about, we're not used to directness or simplicity. We're used to everything being complicated. Personalities are complicated, aren't they? Our emotional life, our experience of life, our habits, they're endlessly complicated, sticky web of samsara. So it just, one becomes, neurotic, confused, even mad, because of the complexities that we find ourselves kind of stuck onto this web of complexity. And then, of course, dukkha is the result of that. So this bringing the point of awareness to here and now, paccuppanna dhamma, and then we chant santitiko, akaliko, ehipassiko, upanayiko, bhajatang this morning, apparent here and now, timeless. Dhamma is here and now, apparent. Santitiko Dhamma, apparent here and now. It's not complicated. It's not about all kinds of complications that we can create about the concept of Dhamma. So it's simple. It's real, simple, practical. Akaliko Dhamma is timeless. And the timelessness is the moment here and now, isn't it? This moment is timeless, here and now. But when you start thinking about it, then it becomes time-bound. You say, well, it's going to end, and then the next thing I've got to do is have breakfast, and then chores, and future. but the more you recognize and value mindfulness, the more you begin to transcend the time, the perceptions of time. So this Buddha knowing Dhamma, Buddho knows Santitiko, Akaliko, Ehipasko, Panayako, Pachatang, reality, in other words. Dhamma is what's real, is reality. So today in the practice, they have this whole day before us and it's not to think that or agree with me, or anything, but this is a reflection to try to encourage you to trust this awareness in yourself, to get to recognize it and cultivate it. And not to believe in the scenarios that your emotional habits and personalities tend to create. Not to judge them, but don't be so committed to views and opinions and emotional habits. Be the knower of them. They are what they are. All conditions are impermanent. All conditions are anatta, non-self. So when we say the gate or the door to the deathless is open, this is it, this mindfulness. That's the escape hatch from samsara. The only one. Within these limitations we find ourselves as human individuals. Now it's discerning the consciousness, discerning, when there's consciousness without attachment and when we're consciousness with attachment. So this attachment, or upadana in Pali, clinging to conditions, then is like this, the sense of myself, me as a person, me as a human body, arises. When I let go, when there's non-attachment, there's still consciousness, and it's discerned. Consciousness without attachment is peaceful, peace of mind, imperturbable peace. With attachment to conditions, then everything's perturbable. We discern the suffering of being lost and caught up into samsara, into the relentless changingness of all the conditions we're experiencing. So there's this Roman skeptic back around in 300 AD, named Pyrrho. And his teaching, there's not much known about him, but he's mentioned, and the thing that caught me was, interested me was, this is from Rome, not from a Buddhist, but what they call the Roman skeptics, which has a similar approach to the Buddha, and this is to suspend judgment, to confine one's attention to phenomena or objects as they appear, by refraining from saying anything definite about them. One can escape the perplexities of life and attain an imperturbable peace of mind. So then, imperturbable peace of mind, not judging, not being caught up in one's tendency to judge, make value judgments, by paying attention to phenomena as it arises, mental objects, phenomena, without saying anything definite about it. It's not making it into anything, it is what it is. Then one can escape the perplexities of life. So this is, this is Dhamma. This is what we do, escaping the perplexities of life and attaining an imperturbable peace of mind is the discerning ability, wisdom to discern attachment. The result of clinging and attaching to conditions is like this. The result of non-attachment is this. So it's discernible. One, attachment to conditioned phenomena out of ignorance is the cause of suffering. Non-attachment is the end of suffering.